Greetings, Community of Hope AME Church. I am Reverend Erica St. Bernard, licensed clinical marriage and family therapist, and I have the pleasure of sharing with you today's mental health moment. I'm also bringing you greetings from Kingdom Fellowship AME Church, where my senior pastor is Reverend Matthew Lawrence L. Wiley, and we are so grateful and thankful for this opportunity to be Kingdom family and to be connected in this way. I also want to wish every woman here at Community of Hope and an amazing Women's Sunday. This is Women's Day, and I'm excited to share this with you. And so, wanted to talk about a mental health concept that gets a lot of play in larger media spaces, and so I wanted us to think about it in light of our own lives as women who are seeking to follow Christ. It is this notion of boundaries. Yep, I said it. It's the B word. It's boundaries. When we think about boundaries, I want us to be thinking about basic things like fences in our yards, right? I don't know where you live. I don't have a fence right now, but I have neighbors who have fences, and the fence allocates where the property lines are. It shows me where my property starts and ends and where my neighbor's property starts and ends. And in our lives, you and I would be really wise to have some effective boundaries in our lives. When you say boundaries, what do you mean, Rev? What does that even look like? Boundaries tell people how to treat us. They tell us how we'll treat ourselves. And so there's an opportunity when we think about a boundary. One boundary in my life might be for work in particular. I don't accept client calls after 9 p.m. But guess what happens? Sometimes clients call me after 9 p.m. And the challenge is holding and enforcing the boundary. So the question I ask you is, if somebody calls your phone at 9 p.m. and you've set a boundary for 9 p.m., how do you enforce that boundary? I'll give you the quick and easy answer. It is do not answer the phone. I repeat, do not answer the phone, because when you answer the phone, if you've placed the boundary in place and you've told your clients or whoever it is that you don't accept calls after 9, however you answer the call after 9, guess what you set them up for? A repeat cycle of continuing to call you after 9. So we have to be really intentional, not just to establish the boundary, but also to enforce the boundary. And I have clients, and myself included, for some of us, it is easier to set a boundary and say, this is a thing that I'm going to do, or a thing I'm not going to do, or if we're honest, a thing I'm not going to allow you to do, or a way I'm not going to allow you to talk to me. But then we allow those things to happen. And so that's where the boundary enforcement is super helpful, and that's where we can even ask God to help us. We can be prayerful and say, God, help me to find the appropriate boundaries for this relationship, for this interaction. I have boundaries at home with my kid. We'll have conversations about, I need you to respect mommy's boundary. This is my alone time for devotion. This is my alone time to finish my workout. And sometimes I have to say, nope, it's not time yet. But there've been times where the sappy mom in me will say, okay, come on, and I allow her to infringe upon that boundary, and then I harbor some level of resentment because I didn't get to do the thing I needed to do that was just for me, which is why the enforcement of the boundary is just as important and significant as the establishment of the boundary. So I'm hoping that you're understanding this concept of boundaries and that you will be intentional to apply some appropriate boundaries in your own life. Maybe it concerns the times you eat. Maybe it concerns safeguarding the time for workout. Maybe if you're in an intimate relationship, it concerns boundarying and safeguarding the time that you all establish for each other. If you're a parent, maybe it looks like spending time with them and having some boundaries around that time. Each of us has a way and a shape and opportunity to have effective boundaries, to do the practice of also enforcing said boundaries so that people will respect us and respect our time. Certainly as women of color, we live sometimes boundaryless lives, and this was before the pandemic. This was before all this stuff that's going on, and so we have to be even more intentional as it concerns our wellness overall to make sure that we have some starts and stops. Boundaries can look like answering or not answering work emails in a certain time frame. It may look like putting our phones on do not disturb to allow for devoted time, the time to devote to the Lord, or time to devote to studying if we're preparing for certifications and tests and other things. So it's important to think about, what boundary am I needing to set with the understanding that the boundary is for me. It impacts the people around me, but it's really for me. The boundary I have with my daughter about my workout time, about my devotional time, it's because I'm better when I've spent time with the Lord, and I feel better when I've worked out. So it's really for me. It impacts the people around me, absolutely yes, and sometimes there's some pushback there, but I encourage you to know that the reason you put the boundary in place is worth it. And so you do want to be very intentional to establish the boundary, but then also do the enforcing piece. And of course, as people of faith, always invite the Lord into the process with you. He'll help you figure out what the boundary needs to be, and he'll also give you amazing strategies for how to enforce it. I hope this was helpful and that you'll take me up on this offer to practice some boundarying today. God bless you and God keep you is our prayer. Take care.